Welcome everyone to our webinar. I know everyone's got a busy schedule, so we don't take it lightly that you're joining us. I'm Melissa, I'm the head of marketing here at Opsera. We have Vishnu, who's our head of product. We have Kumar, who is our CEO and founder, and I could never do him justice. So Nathan, please introduce yourself because I'm just going to shower you with accolades. So Nathan, please.
Well, thanks so much, Alyssa, and thanks everyone for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. Hi, my name is Nathan Harvey. I'm a developer advocate here with Dora and with Google Cloud. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. I think I'm like I said, I'm really excited to be here and kind of share with you some ideas and insights and some of my own experience with Dora and bringing Dora to a bunch of different teams. And, when we think about Dora, we really, I don't know, sometimes we use this word DevOps, and sometimes I think it's a word that we've all kind of moved beyond. But the thing that we haven't moved beyond is what capabilities do we need to build high-performing technology teams? This is a question that really sticks with us all the time. So as we start off, speaking of questions, I wanted to start with kind of a rhetorical question here, maybe. Imagine doubling your software deployment frequency. What if you were shipping change twice as frequently? What's stopping you? What's stopping you from doing that? But maybe even before we get to what's stopping you, I want you to ask these two other questions. How would doing so impact your team? What would the impact be on the teams of practitioners, of engineers, of developers, of operators that are out there running your systems, keeping them going, building them up, shipping those new features? What would the impact be of doubling your release cadence on those individuals, on those team members? Perhaps it would be really good for them. They would feel the joy of getting their changes to customers faster, getting feedback on what they've built. But maybe they would also feel some burnout, like they're ever being asked to run faster and faster. I think this is important. We have to remember we need to be able to do something like this in a sustainable way, in a way that will help our teams and help them really achieve the goals that they're after. Along a similar vein, though, what would the impact be to your customers? What if you were shipping change twice as frequently to your customers? And again, I think that, if you think about it for a few minutes, you can come up with ways that this would be really great for our customers, and potentially even ways that it might not be so great for them. Some customers aren't ready to accept change quite as frequently as we want to be able to ship it to them. In either case, though, I think it's a really interesting question, a good place for us to start. What if we could double our deployment frequency? What if we could ship changes twice as often? What's stopping us? And this is really the foundation of our research program here. You maybe have read the book Accelerate. I, for one, keep it always handy and nearby. It's right here on the shelf behind me. But Accelerate really is this book around the Dora research program. We understand that organizations of every shape and size are in this journey of acceleration. We have to accelerate how we're using technology, when we're using technology. We use this acceleration to meet customer demand, to respond to changes in the market, to keep our systems safe and secure, and to respond and react to new regulatory demands that are placed upon us. This is the research of Dora. So Dora is a research program that's been around for almost a decade now. This research really looks at how do we build and maintain high-performing technology teams. A high-performing technology team is one that is sustainable, one that can stand the test of time, that can be on a journey of continuous improvement without burning out the team members that we have, taking care of their well-being as well. But it is really important to understand why. Why do we even have technology? Why do we use technology? Of course, it's to drive commercial performance. It's to really help our teams and our technologies align to deliver the commercial outcomes that we're looking for. Commercial outcomes like profitability and market share and customer satisfaction. This is where the research starts. Does technology matter? Yes, technology matters. Technology is an enormous enabler of helping you and your organization reach the commercial outcomes that you're seeking. In fact, we know that technology is the driver of a lot of value and innovation that you're able to deliver to your customers. Your customers change their experience and their relationship with you based on the technological capabilities we're able to offer to them, the digital experiences, the ways of interacting that we have. Technology is truly driving all of this value and innovation within our organizations. But as a research program, we have this interesting question: what or how do we measure a high-performing team? How do we know if software delivery is going well or poorly? Well, in our research, we've found 4 key measures for software delivery performance that really help us answer this question. 2 metrics that look at the throughput of our system, and 2 that look at the stability of our system. And in fact, really what we're asking are kind of 4 fundamental questions. How long does it take change to move through your systems and go from a developer's workstation all the way through to a customer? So how long does it take to get changes through your system, and how frequently are you deploying those changes out? These are our throughput metrics. And then on the stability side, look, it's great to push changes through, but if what we're doing is pushing through things that cause a lot of disruption, we need to be very careful of that. We don't want to push through changes that are always going to cause our system to break. So the first thing we look at is the stability of those changes, or the change failure rate. This is a measure of how frequently we push a change out and something really bad happens. We either have to roll back that change that we've just put out or push forward a hot fix. This would be a change failure. Of course, we want to minimize those. And then the other piece that we really look at is this idea of our time to restore service. We know that we want to eliminate as much risk as possible. We want to get rid of all risk in all of our systems so that we know with 100% confidence that things are going to work 100% correctly 100% of the time. Unfortunately, we live in the real world, and we know that those 100% guarantees are at best false promises. There's no way to achieve that. But what we also know is that as a team, as an organization, we can get better. We can build systems and processes and technologies in order to help us recover faster when there is something that causes an incident or an outage. Now, when we take these 4 metrics and look at them as a way to measure software delivery performance, there are a couple of things that are really important to keep in mind. First and foremost, who owns these metrics? Who's responsible for these measures? Are these the measurements that we hand to the development team and say, you take these metrics? Or are they the measures that we hand to the operations team, or to the product owners, or to the executives in the room? Who's responsible for these metrics? Who has accountability for them? Well, the truth is the team has accountability for them. And in fact, the team is a cross-functional team. In many organizations, we have a group of people, a team, or potentially multiple teams that are responsible for building those features, building out that technology. We may even have a separate team that's responsible for running that service once it's live, once it's in production. The truth is, we have to share joint accountability for these metrics. We can't ask our developers to own those velocity metrics or those throughput metrics, and ask our operators to only look after those stability metrics. When we do that, we set up perverse incentives where we're fighting against each other. The developer, well, it works on my machine, now it's somebody else's problem. We need to move away from that mindset. We're all here aligned toward delivering that value. And in order to do so, we have to share joint accountability of these 4 metrics. Beyond that, there are a couple of other things that are really important to keep in mind with these measures. First, or next, is that these measures work at an application or service level. For any application or service that you're providing to your end users, to your customers, what are its software delivery metrics? How is it doing with deployment frequency, with your change fail rate? It's important that we remember that we ask these at the application level, because the truth is, no 2 applications within our organization are the same. They live within different contexts. They have different goals. They have different organizational components, different teams looking after them, driving their performance. We need to understand that this context matters. And so when we look at these 4 metrics, it's important to look at them one application or service at a time. But you can use these same 4 measures for any application or service that you might be running for your organization. Think about this. Perhaps you have a mainframe application. Well, you can ask these 4 questions of the application that runs on the mainframe. You may have an application that is a mobile phone application. You could ask these same 4 questions. Of course, you would expect very different answers from the mainframe versus the mobile, but you can still use these 4 measures basically for any type of technology that you're building, that you're operating, that you're running for your customers. Now, probably the most important and fundamental finding in our research is that throughput and stability are not trade-offs of one another. In fact, we often find teams, or we often live in a world where we know in order to be safe, in order to be stable, we should slow things down. We should take a long time between releases. In doing so, we will increase our stability. But what our research and our lived experience tells us is that if you're shipping, I don't know, let's call it twice a year, the odds of each one of those deployments working successfully, going off without a hitch, without requiring a rollback or pushing forward a hot fix, are quickly approaching 0. But if we make small changes, and we're always moving changes through our system, we're able to move both fast and securely and in a stable way. So this is really probably the biggest insight from the research program. Small changes that are easy to reason about, that are easy to understand, continuously moving through our pipeline, moving from the developer's workstation through to our production instances, where our customers can interact with them. This is the path forward. How do we break down work and get us to a place where we can ship both fast and in a way that's stable? Now, in order to do so, or by using these 4 metrics that we just looked at, we can do a couple of things. The first thing that I mentioned, or one of the things that I mentioned, we can look at how is my team performing. We can use the answer to that question to set a baseline. Here's our performance baseline. And this is good. But another thing that's really important to remember about these metrics is these metrics are what happens kind of at the end of a process. At the moment that we ship a change, that's when the deployment happens. That's when a change failure might happen. But there's lots that leads up to that. So understanding where we are is important, but that begs another question. How do we improve? How do we get better? How do we ensure that we're moving all 4 of these metrics forward? And this is another place where the Dora research really digs in and tries to understand how our team's doing. And the way that we do that in our research program is that we look at a number of different capabilities that drive those performance metrics. In fact, we look at technical capabilities, things like, are you using version control? Please, we didn't do a poll on this because we know that if we asked, are you using version control in your systems? The answer would be 100% yes. And I sure hope that's the case. All right, let me step back off that version control soapbox for just 1 minute. Version control is a great technical capability that I'm sure all of your teams are using today. But it goes beyond just version control, of course. We look at other technical capabilities like continuous integration. How are your teams building out the software? How are they building those changes and integrating them back with one another? We look at things like continuous testing. Look, as we're writing code, we know that the code is always an experiment. Are we getting feedback through testing to validate that this code change that we've just made is the right code change, that it's working the way that we expect it to, so that when we ship it to production, it will land well. It won't incur a change failure. But beyond those technical capabilities, we also look at things like process capabilities and cultural capabilities. For example, you'll see there generative organizational culture. Generative organizational culture is a culture where there's high trust. Information flows freely across teams. When something breaks, we don't look for who should we blame. Instead, we look to seek the answer of what can we learn from this failure? What does this failure teach us about how our system works, how our systems behave? What processes can we change? What communication pathways can we fix up in order to prevent a similar failure from happening in the future? So Understanding where you are with those software delivery performance metrics is vitally important. And then using them as a gauge over time to see how are we improving. Because we need those technical capabilities on the left side, those organizational and cultural and process capabilities on the left-hand side. Those capabilities are the inputs that drive our overall performance, which then further predicts our organizational performance. So this really requires that we take a systemic view of everything that we're doing. We have to look at the people, probably the people first. We have to look at our processes, and we have to look at the technology. Understanding where we are is the first step, and then asking the question, how do we improve? How do we improve? You don't improve your deployment frequency by thinking harder about your deployment frequency or trying to mash the button more frequently. That's not what gets you there. It's these capabilities that really drive that. So the biggest insights from Dora. First, we have a way to measure software delivery performance. We can use those 4 key metrics to really understand how we're doing. And our research shows us that improving those 4 metrics predicts better organizational outcomes, better organizational performance, higher well-being on our team. But in order to get to those performance metrics, we have to invest in the capabilities that drive that performance. And in fact, the best path forward for any team is first to set a baseline, then have a look at those capabilities and understand on this application or service, which capability is lacking, which capability is holding us back. And then as leaders, we create the space and the investments for that team to go and improve that capability. So through capabilities, we get the performance that we want, which really drives the outcomes that we want. Now, today on this call, we've got people from all over the organization. We've got leaders, we've got product owners, we've got software engineers, we've got operators. What can each of you take away from these 4 metrics, from this research program? Well, so here's how this can help you. Let's say you're a product owner or a developer or an operator or a leader, an executive within your organization. First and foremost, you've got to set a baseline. Understand on an application by application basis, how is this application doing? How are they achieving those 4 metrics? And we'll talk about how you might set that baseline here in just a few minutes. But once you've got that baseline set, where do you go from there? How do you use that to drive forward what you're going to do? Well, as a product owner, it's important that you prioritize not how many features are we working on right now, but instead shift your prioritization, shift your thinking to how easily do changes flow through the system. So when you start prioritizing flow of that work, as opposed to quantity of that work, what you'll find is that work will move through the system much more freely, easily, and importantly, safer. Now you're able to continuously deliver value to your customers. But it's also important that you allow time and space for your teams, the teams that you're working with, to act on the feedback that they receive. Everything that we're talking about is about increasing feedback loops. And if we don't allow our teams to act on that feedback and change what they're doing, we kind of leave them in a bad place. Now, if you're a developer on the team, again, it's important that you understand how we're doing, but you can use these metrics maybe in a different way. Look, I'm a software engineer. The thing that I love best about developing software is when a user interacts with it. When I get feedback on, is the thing doing what I expected it to do? Is it doing something that brings you joy? Are you getting value out of this new feature or this change that I've just shipped? So it's really important as a developer that we keep our software in a deployable state so that at any time we can hit that button, we can ship that software off to our customers. And when we get feedback that the software is not in a deployable state, a failing test or something like this, at that moment, we should really stop what we're doing and prioritize fixing the software, getting it back to that deployable state. And it is really important that we as developers design experiments to help accelerate that feedback. What does that mean to design experiments? Well, maybe there's a new technology that you've just read about on the web, and you want to bring that technology into the work that you're doing every day. Well, I think it's important to first start with understanding how is bringing this new technology in going to increase the frequency, increase the fidelity, or increase the or shorten the timeline that it takes for me to get feedback on my changes. Is it going to allow me to make changes faster? Is it going to allow me to get feedback on those changes faster? Is it going to allow me, in the end, to move safer? If you're an operator over there running the systems that other teams potentially have built and handed off to you to run for our customers, again, it's important to understand that we as operators have a role to play in enabling all four of those software delivery metrics. And in order to do so, we need to look for toil. Toil is this thing that, as an operator, it's the thing that you do over and over and over again. It doesn't add any long-term value, any lasting value to our system. Can we eliminate that toil? How can we automate that? But then also it's really important on us. Part of our role as operators is to make sure that developers get the feedback on how their systems are behaving in production, that they have the insights into how are they doing across those four metrics. And then your role as a leader. Your role as a leader is not to come in and shout at your teams, you have to get your deployment frequency up. No, instead, let's align them towards the common vision. Who are these customers that we're trying to serve? What does this application or service provide to that customer? Let's make sure that everyone understands that and the value it provides then to our organization, so that we, as engineers, as operators, can make the right decisions on our own. And again, as a leader, it's your role and responsibility to really incentivize this idea of experimentation and learning. We're always on this journey of continuous improvement. Continuous improvement only works when our leaders, when our executives support us along that journey, giving us the time and space to design and execute those experiments and learn from them. And really, across the entire organization, our role is that of continuous improvement. So we really need to identify and alleviate the constraints, the things that are preventing us from learning, the things that are preventing us from hitting those metrics that we're looking for. And then finally, this is how all of these things can help you, but the truth is there are some pitfalls. There are some things where looking solely at these metrics, these four performance metrics, can cause some problems for you. Specifically for leaders, you need to watch out for perverse incentives, where you have incentives where we're asking teams essentially to fight against one another. You might see this happening when you tell your developers, you're responsible for feature velocity, get things out as quickly as possible. But then you turn to the operators and say, you're responsible for keeping everything running and everything stable. When we do this, think about the nature of what we've just set up there. We've just set up these perverse incentives. As an operator, I know the best way to keep my system stable is to accept no changes from the development team. But that's not any good for any of us. It certainly doesn't serve our mission of delighting our customers and creating those great experiences for them. We have to get the teams aligned. And once the teams are aligned, we also have to step out of the way and let them execute. Let them take their knowledge, their expertise, and drive those metrics forward. I also threw another one on there for a leader. Well, beware of stack ranking disparate teams. When you look at a mainframe application and you look at a mobile application and you look at a web application, these are three very different applications. We cannot expect that these applications will have the same performance metrics. So be sure that you're not letting the metrics, the measures become the goal. Make sure that you're understanding the context in which every team is working. I've listed a couple of other pitfalls there. I'm not going to take you through all of them because I want to make sure that we have time for you to really think about how can you put this into practice. And I want you to remember the first thing that really matters is understanding how are we doing today. We can't really begin a journey of continuous improvement without assessing objectively, how are we doing today? We'll take that measure as a baseline. We'll use that also as a way to consider what capabilities do we need to invest in so that we can start improving those numbers. In fact, understanding the value of those four metrics today only matters as we look at it over time. Don't ask your teams to do anything other than improve. And so how do you set those baseline metrics? How do you get insight into how teams are doing today? And this is a place where I'm going to hand off to the Opsera team, because I know Vishnu has some really great stuff that he can share, how Opsera can help you get started with those baselines and then use that information over time. Vishnu, I'm going to stop sharing and hand off to you.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm going to share my screen.
While Vishnu does that, I popped another poll. Wow, thank you, everybody. If you're using Dora metrics to drive decisions today, feel free to fill out your answer. Got an even split so far. Who's going to break the tie? Okay. Still going, Vishnu. Sorry, the poll is very popular.
No worries. I'll wait for more minutes. And looks like there was a question from Ravi. Meanwhile, Nathan.
Yeah, that's great. I see the question there from RK. It looks like. I'm sorry, I don't see the full name, just the initial there. But let me read the question out loud. Which of these 4 metrics in software delivery are the most important for some of us to focus on in our journey? Well, I have good news and I have bad news for you. There isn't one that's most important. In fact, you really need to look at all 4 of them. Because understanding deployment frequency without understanding, for example, your change failure rate, you're only getting half of the picture. It is really important that you consider all 4 of those metrics together. Now, as you start an improvement journey, how do you improve? It's really those capabilities, those technical, process, and cultural capabilities that are going to help you understand where to make investments and drive those. And what you'll do is you'll say, oh, well, I don't know, as an example, on this particular application or service, it takes a long time for the application to build and then for us to get feedback on whether or not that build was successful. Maybe that's your bottleneck and a good place for you to start. On another, it might be that the deployment process is not automated. It's heavily manual, lots of toil, and lots of room for error. Maybe automating that deployment process is the right place to start. But in either of those cases, what you want to do is look at what is the impact on those 4 key metrics, the performance metrics and the stability metrics. So consider them all and then decide where to improve based on the capabilities. I hope that answers the question. I think we'll have time towards the end for additional questions or follow-ups. Over to you, Vishnu.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Let me introduce myself. This is Vishnu Vasudev, and I head the product here with Opsera. I've been here in this company since the inception, working along with Kumar. Thank you so much for taking time and joining this webinar to hear from Nathan Harvey, who is the expert in this area. So coming to Opsera overview, like most of you would have heard about like what is Opsera. Opsera is an orchestration platform. And like what we do is like we basically like empower the development team with no-code automation platform with respect to DevOps ecosystem. And we took a 3-prong approach. One is the toolchain automation, no-code pipelines, and unified insights. And our entire architecture is based on microservices. So like it's completely loosely coupled and you can pick and choose the module that you need. So when it comes to toolchain automation, what we do is we basically allow people to integrate any CI/CD tool in a secure fashion using the vault that we offer in a dedicated VPC for each of the customers that is using our platform. And then the no-code pipelines, and using the toolchain automation, you can build no-code pipelines either using the UI, UX, or you can also use the CLI and APIs. And our platform can basically support any technology that we have in the market, be it SDLC, infrastructure as a code, Salesforce, Informatica, SnapLogic, Snowflake, you name it, we'll be able to support it. All you have to do is drag and drop, build the templates, publish the catalog, and then like people can start using it. The third one is the unified insights, which will basically provide you 100+ KPIs, like starting from your Dora, security posture, quality posture, operations metrics. On top of it, you will be able to have the end-to-end correlated and contextualized logs, along with some blueprints for audit and compliance purpose. So like you will know what came in, like starting from the story that is created, what is the commit, who committed it, what was the artifact generated, where it was deployed, when it was deployed. So in case like if you have to go through any audit or security challenges, you'll be able to quickly audit and you'll be able to recover from the issue that you're dealing with it. That's about Opsera. And we have like, when it comes to Unified Insights framework, doesn't matter what kind of orchestration pipeline that you're using. It can be like Opsera pipelines, GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, or Azure DevOps. We can basically connect to any of these pipelines and provide you like deeper insights, starting from agility, security, quality, DevOps productivity, which is nothing but the developer productivity, and also finally the audit and compliance and governance. So if you look at it here, irrespective of what persona you are, you will be able to get some feedback, value add by looking into these KPIs. So I know there's a lot of software engineers in this particular webinar, like more than the leaders and managers here. That shows how the developers are basically like looking like into the insights aspect, right? Previously, 2-3 years back, maybe 5 years back when DevOps came in, and if you go to any software engineer and ask about the DevOps visibility or DevOps insights, they'll say like, why do I care about the DevOps insight? My job is just to develop. But these KPIs are important. You being here in this webinar, that shows how important for you to basically like help your organization with the vision they have. And then like, how can you basically like how can you basically care about the work that you do on a day-to-day basis? That's very good, right? Thank you so much for like all the software engineers who joined this meeting. And I'll basically give you like a quick overview on the Opsera product itself, like what we can offer out of the box. Just by connecting the tools, we'll be able to pull all of these KPIs and give you the value. And the last one is some of the other visibility dashboards that we have. It can be developer productivity, can be like security posture KPIs across SaaS, DaaS, threat vulnerability management, container management, and then like your pipeline KPIs, and then like your quality KPIs, and then finally the Dora KPIs. So I'll basically stop here. Please start posting your questions. I'll quickly go through the demo on the Dora KPIs and also some other KPIs that I talked about with respect to security, quality, and audit management capabilities that we have. Okay, so are you able to see my screen? Just switch the screen.
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So this is the portal for Opsera. So basically you come in and like we have this concept called tool registry. As I said, like you can connect to any tools like with Opsera, and anything that you connect, it's going to be through the wall, which is completely secure. So you don't have to worry about the authentication, the encryption factors. Everything is taken care out of the box, be it pipeline, Unified Insights, or toolchain. So when it comes to Dora, we are not going to ask the plethora of tools that you have on your DevOps ecosystem. We need only 4 tools. What are those 4 tools? Source code management tool, your planning tool, it can be Jira or Rally, your ServiceNow tool for service management, or if you're using Jira for service management, you can use it. And finally, the pipeline. The pipeline can be, as I said, GitLab, GitHub, Jenkins, Azure DevOps, or Opsera pipeline. Irrespective of it, you'll be able to provide this Dora KPIs out of the box. So if you look at here on the top, like we basically have like 4 KPIs, which is required. And we also give you like the industry standards where you stand when it comes to Dora: elite, high, medium, and low. In case, if you want to basically strategically change these goals, right? For instance, lead time for changes, the industry goal might be different, but like you might have an application that has deployment maybe once in 2 months because that is the need of the application. So we don't want to penalize that application by putting them into the low category. So we give the capability to basically adjust the strategic criteria as long as they deploy it like once in 2 months and like they meet the goals of the organization, they meet the customer satisfaction, then they are good. So that capability is available out of the box with Opsera. MTTR, cycle time for changes, deployment frequency, and finally change failure rate. You might be wondering, like Nathan was showing about 4 KPIs. What is the 5th KPI that we are talking about? Let me basically go through that and explain what is that exactly. So the first one I'm going to go through is the lead time for changes. When it comes to lead time for changes, you can basically apply the filters. The filters can be like multiple groups within your organization. It can be a product, program, or a release, or an application, or an organization. And you can also apply the tags with respect to the timeline, and you'll be able to see the comparison here. So the current period, the lead time for changes is 19.59 days. The previous period, 31.13. And 2 periods ago, you didn't have any data to basically to measure. So how are you doing now? Right now, you are improving. Previously, the lead time for changes is 31 days, now 19 days. What happened? Like, how are you able to improve? You can basically double click that, and you can see the list of deployments, the total commits, total repositories that is involved in this particular lead time for changes, the contributors, and then your median lead time, and then like average LTFC. So the way we calculate is we take the first commit for that particular feature and how long it took for that commit to go into the production. It can go through various cycles in between. It can be like a unit testing, the continuous security, continuous testing, and then like validation, approval process with respect to CAB or whatever that is, and you'll be able to measure it. And you can also see like how long it took for the particular commit to go into production. It takes 21 days, 18 hours. Some commit goes into 28 seconds. And this will also give you an opportunity. In this case, I'm basically showing the GitLab pipelines. So what you can do is you can basically click this URL, go into the pipeline, understand why it took 28 seconds for this particular commit to go into production. Maybe the first time they're committing, they're pushing directly into production. That may not be a good practice, right? So release managers can probably like take a look at this and understand like what's happening there, right? When I go into the next KPI, cycle time for changes. Cycle time changes is not part of the Dora, but like we wanted to give a like view on this as well. So this view will basically allow you to understand from the time the story created, how long it took for the story to basically go into the production. You might have multiple processes within the Jira workflow, right? You might have an architect review coming in, putting together a design. You might have a pickup time that is part of the agile process, sprint planning, those things, and then like coding time, completion time. And you can, if you look at it, the coding time is only 3.8 days. The completion days, the release manager takes only like 0.3 days, but like the cycle time is 13.7 days. But you don't see the data here. What happened there? That means somebody created the story. It's not part of the workflow, or it is created in a wrong project, and it's not reflecting here. You'll be able to identify the bottlenecks. And I'll be able to click this view and understand and compare. Okay, Rajeshwar Rajendran, he's my like engineering manager. He's working on some like feature, and you can compare it with the project, like overall team, how are they performing it, and like what's Rajeshwar's performance looking like. And you'll be able to baseline it and also understand like for each developers. And if you want to compare developer between like a different organization, you'll be able to do that as well. So if you look into the developer productivity here, 6 stories has been assigned to this developer Arun, right? And he completed 4. And how many defects he created out of the 6 stories that he was working on? 0. And like how long it took for him to complete the story? 20 days. And what is the defects completion? Since it is 0, it is 0. In case he produced 2 defects and it took like another like 18 hours to fix this particular defect. Now, this is a feedback loop for the product managers, the scrum managers, to basically understand why it is taking so long, so like they can plan it much better when it comes to the next sprint planning. Give me 1 second. I'm going to bring back my screen. I apologize for that.
Well, Vishnu knows that we have a question that says all the applications are different. So how can the lead time to changes be gauged based on the industry standard? Vishnu, Nathan, Kumar, who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to take that one. Let me show you my face again. There we go. Hi, it's me again. So what we do as part of our research each year is we actually baseline across the industry, and we publish out an annual report. We call it the Accelerate State of DevOps report. But in that report, we take a look at those 4 key measures, and we look across all of our survey respondents to understand how are they doing across those 4. And we divide those 4, or we divide those responses up based on the clusters of data that we see. So for example, in 2022, we had low performers who performed poorly across all 4 metrics. We had medium performers, and we had high performers. Those high performers were performing well across all 4 of those metrics. So we use that and we publish that as part of our annual research report. And so that helps you kind of benchmark against the team, and it helps folks like Opsera and identify or sort of align to the benchmarks that we're seeing across teams as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Sorry for the glitch. Let me take you to the MTTR, the most important KPI, which Nathan also talked about, right? So when you push a change to production and like you go through some failure, and how long it's taking time for the team to basically recover from that, right? So this is very important because like you have a customer facing application as a SRE team or like a release management team or the product team. This is very, very important for them to track. so that like they can look into the risk factors when they plan for the next sprint. They can also like use this data to basically have a retrospection with the team to understand what really happened, why the change failed, even though like everything worked fine until the QA staging environment, right? You can understand, okay, the resolution time is 1 hour. It takes 1 hour for the team to acknowledge it. See how you can improve the acknowledgement to like less than 15 minutes because it's a customer facing application. And what is the severity of the incidents? This incidents will be able to track it. Okay, you push a change on an application A, but you have a downstream application of B and C that is getting impacted as well. We'll be able to track those 2 applications as well, give you the KPIs. Okay, out of everything, this one blocker, it took 0.5 hours. And like, this is the pipeline failure reason. And like, they can go into the workflow ID, they can look into the issue and see like what really happened, take the feedback loop and improve the process next time. So like your MTTR can be improved. The last one is the deployment frequency. The deployment frequency here, like we'll be able to tell you like you are up by 15% from the last period, right? Like previously it was like 47 period, now it's 50, 55. And you can basically double click this here as well. And you can see the time taken to deploy, 28 minutes, the moment you trigger the pipeline, how many deployments you pushed, and then like total deployments failed, and then average time to restore failed deployments. You deploy something, failed, and like how quickly the team is able to react, because this data is important. Today, like if you look at most of the enterprise organization, they work in siloed space, right? Like something goes wrong in the release, the development team has to rely on DevOps team to understand what really happened. So like they can start working on the fix. And imagine that like we have this data on hand and you can monitor it in real time, understand what really happened. They can start working on it the moment like they see the failure coming in, right? That will basically reduce the failure rates, and you'll also be able to improve the deployment, like decrease the deployment failures and improve the deployment frequency. So this is on the Dora, but like we have other KPIs as well, as I said, like on the security posture of it, like all the management posture or like the quality posture. Let me walk you through the security posture. Security works in the same way. You connect your security tools as part of your pipeline. We'll be able to give you the security posture because your deployment frequency or MTTR, like it's not dependent on the commit that is going in, but you will have other factors also coming in, right? Like your security might have some issues, like where you have a CVE score of 9.8 coming into the picture, and you might have to roll back because that is a huge risk for the application that is exposed in internet. And you have your static code analysis, and then like your vulnerability scorecard, how many vulnerabilities the team has produced, and like what are the new bugs were introduced. So all these things can be a quick feedback loop for the product management team to reprioritize things. And also this will help the developers to have security mindset as part of the development, right? People are talking about secure software development cycle. How can you basically build this practice? You need to have the data in hand, so like you can mature the team using the data-driven practice, right? So if you look at here, the container scan, this is a container I'm trying to deploy, and like I have one critical issue, and you see a trend. That means like from the previous deployment to the current deployment, there is an increase in vulnerability on medium, negligible, and critical. I'm not worried about the negligible, but I'm worried about the critical. What is the critical? I can basically click here and look at the image name. What is it? And this will also basically help you to understand whether this image was created using the golden image that you have as part of your container management. And then what is the pipeline ID that basically created this image? And then what is the issue? You can click this here and you can understand the CVE score, look at the description as well. Imagine you don't have this data. The developer has to basically go to the security team, talk to the release management team, understand the CVE, and then like look into the internet to see like what's really happening for the function they have written. Now, having this information, they can start working on it while they have a conversation with the security team to understand like how to mitigate this risk in the future, as well as in the current release as well. And you have the security posture. Similarly, like we give a double click down. So we basically by default say, have the goal of A for any static code analysis. It can be SonarQube, it can be checkmarks, Coverty, Black Duck, you name it, pretty much you get a similar dashboard view as well. When you click the security, we give the vulnerability report. Now we can see 42 pipelines are executed in a given period. Out of 42 pipelines, you have 11 blockers was introduced, 0 critical major, 0 minus 0 info. Now you see this pipeline number 195 execution. They introduce one vulnerability, and like here they introduce 4. When I click this, I'll be able to see what are those vulnerabilities, what line number of code it is in, and who is the author and what is the issue. Now, now the developer will have mindset, okay, next time when I develop a code, I will not put an AWS access key or Azure access key in the code. I'll basically have integration to the vault and save it securely so that like my SaaS is not going to fail on the security aspect, and I'm going to like deploy a code which is clean from like which does not have any security issues or concerns. And you can basically build similar KPIs for other areas as well, like threat vulnerability management, and then like the new vulnerabilities. And we also give some sort of information around how long it will take to remediate these issues as well. So that feedback also will be really helpful for the Scrum management, product, and then engineering team to understand how much of security tickets that they can take as part of the feature development they're doing as part of the sprint, right? So the next one is the manager view. The manager view will give you details about like how is the build statistics looking like, the daily deployment into your dev environment or QA environment, your security posture, your Git custodian KPIs. It's basically like nothing but we scan the repository and we give the posture around like whether the repository has any sensitive variables like secrets, tokens, passwords, or like PII data, GDPR, and we can basically flag that here. Also, like integrate with the pipeline as well. Who are your like most active contributors, and like how is your merge request looking like? Who is the reviewer? And like as a lead, I can come in, basically have this dashboard, look at it. Hey, okay, like I have like 3 merge requests to be reviewed today. I can basically go in, merge it or close it, understand like how long they're taking time to approve the merge. If you look at here, this data, this is critical. Most of the teams, at least like I have seen as major concerns, they basically review and merge the code in like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That's not a good practice, right? So you can basically like ask the team to put a strategic goal, like, okay, at the minimum, you need to review the code for 30 minutes based on the lines of code they have written. And then like you can merge it. So like you can build the best practices around like how you merge the code, how you review the code as well. And then SEM merge statistics. And then you can also see what is your latest artifact running in different environments. For instance, like you might have an e-commerce application, or you might be running an application across the globe, and like you will have different version running in different parts of the world. How can you identify that? You can basically click the application name and we'll be able to tell what is the status of the latest deployment and like what version is running in what location. That way you'll be able to understand your deployment strategy as well next time you're planning for the deployment. And you can have recent pipeline status. One important factor with Opsera is it's not just for SDLC or infrastructure as a code. If you have a Salesforce, if you have Snowflake, if you have SnapLogic, we have option to natively integrate to the version control system. So one problem in the SaaS-based or COTS-based development, they do not use version control system. Every development is done on the SaaS platform directly. How can you basically bring this practice so like you can capture all these metrics, right? So you connect Opsera to your Git repository and then like your SaaS application, we can take care of the integration with respect to version control system, your conflict management, merge management, and you don't have to worry about the low-code developers learning about the Git commands. How do they basically like do a PR? How do they basically approve a PR? Everything can be taken care from the Opsera platform itself. And the last one, you also get the quality posture. It can be unit testing, it can be functional testing. You'll be able to understand like what is your defect density looking like? What is your defect leakage looking like in your production? And like how is your automation candidates? How many test classes has been automated? How many regression test cases completed? And what is your percentage looking like? You can basically measure pretty much everything here so that like you get a 360-degree view, not just on the Dora, but also other factors within the pipeline with respect to continuous security, continuous testing, and also your deployment strategy. All these KPIs comes out of the box, and Insights is an independent module. All you can do is come register the tools that is required to be like integrated with Opsera, get the KPIs out of the box. I'll pause here and I'll happy to take any questions that you have on the demo.
Looks like we have one from Rob. Kumar or Vishnu, do you want to speak to the question Rob popped in the chat just in case? Because folks can't see the question.
Yeah, the question is, it appears many of the concepts apply to pure software development, code dev teams. However, we also have product agile teams that are responsible for configuring vendor products, example, Microsoft Teams for releases, best practices for structuring and measuring these type of teams. Thank you. That's the question. So that's the one I was covering in the last part of the demo, right? Irrespective of the technology that you're working on, it can be mainframe, it can be like the mobile-based deployment, Salesforce-based deployment, Informatica, SnapLogic, Snowflake, APG gateway, you name it, we'll be able to integrate with the version control system, and you'll still be able to get this KPIs out of the box.
Awesome. Any other questions? Nathan, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that looking at this Opsera demo was super cool. Thanks for sharing that, Vishnu. I think again, I have to say I've seen far too many teams go down the cautionary tale, if you will, of trying to custom build systems to pull all of their metrics together. And oftentimes what ends up happening on those teams is that they spend a lot of time building out these custom integrations and dashboards within their organizations, and they spend no time improving their development processes and improving their overall software delivery performance. So using a tool like Opsera can help you by integrating easily into the systems that you have today and already get you that baseline, so that instead of starting by setting a baseline, you've got the baseline. Now we can begin the improvement journey. And that's where you really start to see things pay off. So I think it's really, really fascinating and exciting to see the tooling that you shared with us, Vishnu. It's super cool to see how it integrates and the way that it helps expose those 4 key metrics. And importantly, other metrics beyond that, even getting into some of the capabilities like code review, as an example, that you need to have and need to focus on in order to drive those performance metrics. In addition to that, if you want to learn more about Dora, the place I would send you to is, I'm going to type the URL into chat, but it's pretty easy to remember. Head over to dora.dev. You'll find all of our research there, as well as a bunch of tools that can help you as you learn more about our own research, but then apply those lessons within the context of your own teams.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, as always. Pleasure as always. Thank you, Vishnu. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope it was engaging. I know I love that Nathan wore his Dora shirt today, so I'm a fan of that. We will send everything out by the end of the week, so keep an eye on your inbox and stay tuned for more exciting Dora plans. And we're not done with you, Nathan. There's more we want to do with you. So thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I love this partnership. Thank you all. And thanks for joining today. We'll see you out there on the internet.
See you on the internet. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.